can just pretend that I just threw you all a kiss, and I won't tell you that my two friends who live in the Netherlands, and it must be 1 or 2 a.m. there, just got on. It's 1 a.m. They just held up one finger. So I have a couple of friends from the Netherlands. Y'all should be in bed asleep.
I go.
Well, I can hear you talking even. Okay. Thank you for joining us tonight. It's been an interesting week. It seems that life gets a little wilder throughout this time, and I'm sure others are experiencing it also. I spent a lot of my day out flying a drone with my 7-year-old grandson, which was just delightful, and planting flowers. So those were the two things that I got to spend my Sunday doing. So last week, I spoke about how the lung issues that are, attached to the COVID deaths right now, that we had a different view from Chinese medicine, that the factors associated with those were oftentimes having to do with blood. And in Chinese medicine, the liver stores the blood, and the smooth and free flow of both qi and blood is related to liver energy. So we talked about wanting to focus on moving qi and moving blood, as well as building qi and blood. And again, one of the ways that we build qi and blood is by getting a good night's sleep. And the other thing is that the wood element that's symbolized by the gallbladder and liver, the time of night that starts is like from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. And so the time from 11 to 3 is absolutely very, very important to be sleeping. Those are the times that your liver blood is resting. Hopefully you're sound asleep. And so I really want to encourage everybody to think about how important those are times for sleeping. And you oftentimes hear about people getting up to practice their meditation or their tai chi or their exercises early in the morning, but it's usually not between that 11 and 3 o'clock slot. So, it's one thing to get up at 4 or 4:30 to start meditation. And there was a time, the first time I ever studied in Korea, I was uncomfortable in the hotel I was in, so I checked out of it, and I went and I got a room very close, like just 50 yards from a monastery, a Buddhist monastery. And so that meant for the rest of the time that I was studying in Korea, every morning at 4 o'clock, the temple bells would start ringing, and then at 4:30, the priest or people who were in that area who came ended up coming in for the early morning chanting. And so it was one of the really beautiful times in my life that I look back on and think about. But that's just a long way to share that 11 to 3 is a really important time. And sleeping from 1 a.m. to 9 a.m. doesn't give the same rest to your wood organs, which are the gallbladder and liver. So I just really wanted to encourage people to really try and be asleep before 11 o'clock. When looking at our health, we right now are focusing a lot on our physical selves, but in Chinese medicine, you can't really separate out the physical from the emotional, from our spiritual self, and also our social selves. And we're seeing now how much we are impacted by our environment. And it's been really interesting and amazing to watch how much our environment has improved with just these last 6 or 8 weeks of slowing down. And I think we've all just seen those times where they're now talking about the waters in Venice, Italy, how clean and clear they are. Or they're talking about how the oceans, they're already starting to see them regenerate. And it's an interesting thing to look and see what us slowing down for 8 weeks can do to our environment. And looking at that, it kind of, we all think about having a rest and slowing down and how it impacts our own health. But every time one of us is resting and slowing down, it's not just impacting ourselves. We do have an impact on the world, on each other, and the environment. So I really want to talk about all of that as we move through tonight. I wanted to talk just a little bit more about, if we're sitting here looking at those things where we slow down and how it can impact the world, what happens if we look at what those places are that really nourish us, okay? So, think about it right now. Where are the places that you feel most nourished by, most supported by, okay, and having a sense of peace, okay? What are the qualities of that space? What are the things that make you feel safe, that make you feel at ease? All of these are actually just a part of the general principles of Feng Shui. And Feng Shui, as in medicine, you always want to tailor that to the individual. Some of us really, really feel the need to be around the woods and trees and out there. And the wood in Chinese Feng Shui is also a sense of the family. Because if we talk about our family, one of the words we always use is the family tree. And if we think about a healthy family, a healthy tree, it's oftentimes going to have, lush, beautiful green leaves. If we see leaves that are really dried up at this time of year, we realize, this tree has been losing some of its connection to the earth, and it may be on his way out. So think about it. Take a few minutes to yourself tonight, and in a time of quite quiet contemplation, write a list of those places in your world where you feel best. Where do you feel the most loved? Where do you feel nourished? Where are you when you feel the ability to nourish yourself and not just others? Oftentimes we see that we may be in a place where we think about nourishing others as a place that's, really healthy for us. If you go on a vacation and your whole vacation turns to supporting your family and others, that may not have been a vacation for you. And I think all of us may have experienced that at some time. How do we take a vacation that basically nourishes us? Once we know, those places that basically we feel the best, we love the best, and that nourish us, then we can kind of look for bringing those qualities into our home, because it's able to bring those qualities to our home that really, that has to do with the roots of Feng Shui. You know, we were talking last week about, for general good health, we have to have free flow of qi and blood. The liver is responsible for the movement of qi. And so we talked about how important it was to not go out and take a 5-mile run where you're looking on getting your time down, but to take an easy and free-flowing walk where your blood and qi are circulating with you feeling at ease and at peace. If we look at qi that's flowing free, and we look at blood that's flowing free, and then we take that into our environment, what's it going to look like? Well, it's not probably going to look like a set of stairs where half of the stairs have been placed with things that you need to take upstairs or things that maybe you're bringing downstairs. And I looked at that just today and thought about that. And so a friend and I were basically able to like clean up my stairways. In other words, when I come up to the part of the house where I have a small study and my bedroom is up here and all of my clothes, there's no blockage that's keeping me from coming to a place where it nourishes me, where I gather my rest, okay? If there's a lot of clutter at really important parts of your home, it could be a lack of cleanliness. It could also just be hoarding. You know, for some of you may not know, but I'm looking at moving into a house come August that I hadn't lived in previously. Since 1992, I believe. Maybe, I don't know, let's see, I moved into it in 87. I'm moving back into the first house that I ever bought here in the Western North Carolina. And it's a lot smaller than mine. And what it's done is it's made me look at what I have. And it's interesting. I don't think of myself as a hoarder, but goodness, when I look around, I see so many things I've been given. And I was given, 6 or 7 years ago, probably, an ostrich egg. And it has such meaning for me because my friend Donna brought it. We were all at a class out in Tucson, and we were able to take this egg and make a breakfast for like 10 people. And, you know, it's sitting in my house. I look at it and I think of that. And then I think of, well, how could I let that go? And then the first thing is my grandson looks at that and says, Gigi, I want that egg when you move. And so I've come to looking at how I'm going to let go of those things that I've gathered in my life that have really given me beautiful and wonderful memories, but now may just be a reason for me to be able to live more simply and to let go. So there's a really good reason for all of us to do a deep cleaning. You know, some of it is just to have a clean home, but also it's more important energetically. And it's really strange, but I think about my mother. My mother's 90, for those of you who haven't heard me say that 5 times in the last week. But my mother, we always did spring cleaning. And it was interesting because we really got down and scrubbed all the woodwork, took everything out of closets and cabinets. And I realized that this is spring now. And because of this slowing down, I've had this wonderful opportunity to spring clean our office. And if you step into the Chinese Acupuncture Clinic, you might notice that there's a different feel to it. I mean, my staff, we've all been there in our mask over the weekends, and we've actually done the things that my mother did. And there is something energetically that frees you up when you take the time to throw out things that you've either been meaning to, or you look at it and you see this junk drawer or closet of boxes, and you don't even know what's in those boxes anymore. That was what happened to me at the Chinese Acupuncture Clinic the last 2 weekends we've spent a day. It's almost like the condo approach. And I bought the book, and as I do with many books, I got through about the first or 2 chapters. But looking at the things in my house, it's like, what brings joy to you? And what are those things that spark your joy? And what are the things that are in your closets or that have been tucked away in drawers, but they're no longer part of your present life? Cleaning out those closets, doing it physically, but it also cleans things out on a mental, emotional, and spiritual perspective. There are treatments in Chinese medicine, and we talk about the 8 extra meridians. And the 8 extra meridians, if you've had a practitioner tell you that they're going to do a Ren Mai treatment, or a Du Mai, or a Chong Mai, or any of the 8 extra meridian treatments, sometimes you might hear someone talking about a Dai Mai treatment. And every time I say Dai Mai, the first thing I have to say is Dai means D-A-I, is spelled Dai, but it's a meridian system that has to do with letting go of those things we no longer need. And all of us have those things that we no longer need, that are, basically taking up the energy of our homes and the energy of our life, because we haven't decided, I can pick up this box and give it to someone else. A Dai Mai treatment, if I'm doing that in a clinical setting, I may be looking at something that's leakages, or I may be looking at a blockage. Okay, I have to stand up to show you this. That's if I can get this. The Dai Mai, I had to look to see. The Dai Mai is a meridian that starts up around underneath the breast, and it comes down, and it comes where we have accumulations. So like anybody who has an accumulation, at the ovary area, at the uterine, at the urinary bladder, at the kidney, at the prostate, all of these accumulations can be a blockage energetically. But also sometimes it can be a place of leakage where we just need to consolidate. And so in working with the Dai Mai meridian, you could either be consolidating, just make sure that you're stopping place where there's leakages, or you could be releasing it to whatever these things are that you've been holding in your life or in your body that you no longer need. How do we let go of these? So just as we have leakages and blockages of blood or qi or phlegm, so do we have blockages in our environment. What are those things that we have to look at? If you're having leaking from your sink every day, or if your toilets are running every day, in Chinese medicine, those are considered really important leakages of qi. If you have windows that won't close, or sometimes a window that won't open, okay, those are also blockages. Recently, we had the clinic painted at the Chinese Acupuncture Clinic, and all of a sudden I realized all of the doctors, it's like we couldn't open the windows, and we all kind of went a little hysterical over that, because it's like you got to have an open window for Chinese medicine treatment sometimes. I mean, it's not just the moxa, but sometimes it's just the energetics. You need to be able to, let energy move in and out. Another thing is clogged drains. If you have drains that are always clogged, then, and you're always having to work with a sink that you have to push the stop or up and down real quick to get it moving, or you have to do something else. These are things that this is part of the Feng Shui, not just the energetics of our body having free and open qi and blood, but also in our lifestyle, in our home. Another thing I read today is how they're recommending that our cars and our autos are places that they're really recommending that we won't need to be driving with cracks in our windows to help, change the airflow. If you're in a car and you're not taking in clean air from the outside, that becomes stagnant. And it's the same thing to have air and qi moving through your house. So not just because of the coronavirus, but also because of Feng Shui. You want to have free flow of qi. So you every day, if it's possible, crack your doors and windows. If you have a fan, set that up for a while to help circulate and move air through your home. Those are things that are really important from a Feng Shui perspective. Every week when we have these, I usually am drinking either rose tea or jasmine tea. And anyone who's really deeply into tea would say, jasmine tea is not tea, or rose tea. If you're going to drink tea, it's got to be green tea, or for what most of you may not know, green tea and black tea, they all come from the same plant. It's just how it's processed. But that was just a sidebar because I needed a swallow of my tea tonight, which tonight is Japanese tea with jasmine flowers in it. So the next thing I was going to talk about is supporting the heart. And it's interesting that the flowers in the tea that I drink are jasmine and rose, because both of those are flowers that are so aromatic that it opens the sensory orifices. And our sense of smell goes directly into the brain, okay, where it doesn't have to bypass other things. It goes directly to the limbic system. And so the teas that I drink are those that, if you looked at it from an energetic, are those that nourish the heart. And since I just talked about rose and jasmine, I want to share a little bit about two essential oils. And it's because from a Chinese medicine perspective, and from a Taoist, really more a Taoist perspective than Chinese medicine, when at the time of a person's passing, all of us carry sometimes unresolved issues. And at that point, in a Taoist religious perspective, you anoint the body. And the reason you anoint the body, it's with two different oils. One of them is frankincense. And frankincense is, we say, it's an essential oil to help to heal the wounds that we were not able to heal. And then rose is that really lifts the spirit up. And so we say that in a Taoist perspective, anointing the body with frankincense and rose after death, and just placing essential oils over the heart and over the pericardium. And remember, the pericardium is called the heart protector. By placing essential oils there, it helps to heal the wounds that haven't been healed as that person ascends, and helps the spirit to leave their body for the ascension to heaven. So I just wanted to share that little bit about Taoist philosophy and the spiritual aspects of at the death to help, even at death, we can help someone to heal. So in speaking of supporting the heart, going back to the heart, this is a time right now where each of us needs to cultivate those yin aspects. Some of us have been forced to step back from doing. And as Americans, that's what really has become part of what defines us. We're particularly known for a workaholic lifestyle, that false association of being productive, that's part of what makes us worthwhile. And I want you to make conscious choices in your home right now that nourish your heart. And again, that's going back to what are the things that nourish you. It was interesting when I moved to France with my daughter. She was 6 years old at the time. And what that did was it gave me a very different view, because even in France, children at lunchtime were expected to walk home, to go home, have a relaxing lunch, and then come back to school. So lunchtime in France was 1.5 hours. Students left school, walked down to the house, had lunch, and sat around talking with their parents who had also taken lunch. That was a 1.5 or 2 hour lunch from their work, and then came back. So, those are the things that, we've gotten away from, is taking that time in the daytime to even have a relaxing meal. And I'm the worst of that. I'm like perfectly easy to sit there and eat while I'm working through a day. So some of these talks are not just, because I'm trying to share things with you, but it's also helping me to remember those things for myself. And looking at, what nourishes your heart. Maybe in your place of work, instead of having educational things going all the time, and when I say education, I mean, I know people that are actually who are multitasking and listening to podcasts, educational podcasts, while doing their work. And maybe it's a time for us to play music that nourishes our heart. Maybe we need to diffuse essential oils. If we feel like we need to basically be calmed and our spirit relaxed, maybe rose or maybe jasmine. But maybe what we also need, some of us, is to be more aware of what's around us. So that would be something like orange peel or even mint, that are kind of uplifting. Maybe we need to look at the colors we're wearing, the clothes, what makes us feel good. Spend as much time outside in nature. If you live in a city apartment, it may be that what you need to do is to buy some house plants and have them right every day, where you can see and just bask in the energy of a small, tree in your house, or an area where you have plants. I want to talk a little bit more about our blood, because, I'm kind of going in and out of Feng Shui, and also some of the more deeper aspects, I think, of Chinese medicine that come from from part of the Taoist roots. And it's not like Taoism is where all Chinese medicine comes from, but the Taoists really did have a strong influence. And some of the strongest teachers that I've studied through my studies with Jeffrey Yuan were Taoist priests, or basically, with Taoist priest. And one of the things that you've heard me talking about is our chi, but I want to go back to blood. And we've all begun to hear that the problems with COVID-19 are having to do with sometimes how it's impacting the blood in the heart and the blood clots that are forming. And in Chinese medicine, the blood is also where we store, we say, our unresolved emotional issues. So all of us have unresolved issues. And, it's an important time maybe to consider this an invitation to help resolve those. And sometimes our unresolved issues really have to do with relationships with others in our family, relationships with others at work. But how do we resolve those issues? An important thing to remember is that we don't need anyone else to resolve our emotional issues. I don't need to go to therapy with John or Susie or Kathy if I have unresolved emotional issues. Those are my own. And sometimes we tend to think that we have to work out things with another to resolve them. But those things that we carry in our blood are not those things that can't be resolved by ourselves. And I remember having a conversation at one point where I asked people, how much do you consider yourself a compassionate person? And it made me, during that time, listen, and we had a conversation about it. And then I asked everybody just to sit quietly and to close their eyes and to think about our president. And this was a couple of years ago, not even now. And I assume that everyone here knows it's best not to swallow bleach, because swallowing bleach or trying to put UV light inside of our body, so, are not going to help us to heal from COVID. But I asked this group of people how many of them could have compassion for Trump. And it's not Trump as the man, but it's Trump as another human being who's here and suffering just like all of us may have suffered at one point in time. And I'm not saying that, we need to take everyone who's creating problems on the earth and in our lives and just walk away from that and say, oh, that's fine. But all of us have our injuries, and none of us know what each other's injuries are. And, the thing I want to really stress is that healing comes from our own hearts. We can't heal from basically, going in to a doctor's office. You can't even heal by walking into an acupuncturist's office. All we're able to do as doctors, whether we're a doctor of Chinese medicine or a doctor of Western medicine, is offer guidance and hopefully find a path that you can walk. But the medicines, the herbs, the exercise, the food, true healing comes from our hearts. And our hearts are circulating the blood that carries our unresolved pains. And so what I'd also like to do, but to also, all of us sit quietly tonight or tomorrow or sometime this week and look at those issues that we still carry. Look at the hurts that we carry from others in our life. and make a conscious choice to take that, heart pain. When we talk about heart pains in Chinese medicine, take that heart pain and try and wrap it in love and compassion that we all carry, and if we can wrap those in love and compassion, then maybe we won't have to deal or talk to the person that may have been a part of that, because only we can heal our hearts. It's not up to someone else to heal my pain. And if we can all look at that and take responsibility for our own heart pains, and then maybe we can also, I don't know how to shift this back into Feng Shui if you want to know the truth, but it has more to do, I think, sometimes if we can heal our own hearts, then we can look around and see those areas in our home that may need to be touched. But I think that's the end of what I wanted to say. Oh, there's one more thing I didn't say. Check out your front door, because our front door is where we enter into our homes, which should be a haven of safety for us. Make sure that the hinges, make sure it's a smooth and easy entrance. That's one of the most important feng shui items you could have, is moving really smoothly and easily into your home. Should there be no squeaking of the front door, or the door not opening smoothly, or your doorbell not ringing, or your doorknobs not working. Make sure all of those are open. And open your home just as for healing there, just like you're going to open your heart for healing. Support your heart physically through your own journey, and support the heart within your home by making sure it's also clear and clean. So that's really all I have to say tonight. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those. You'd probably need to start typing them in now. I don't even know. Let's see. No one had audio. I hope y'all had audio through this time tonight. But I'll sit here for a minute or two. And thank you for joining us. Next week, I'm actually going to ask to have a couple of friends join me, and we're going to talk about suggestion for bedroom where door opens to bed. Okay, yeah, that's one of the things that I found, is that one thing that always helps to change the energy is either moving water or a moving wind chime. So you could take where the door is opening at the top and put like a little hook that goes out 2 inches, and hang one of those tiny wind chimes. So as you open the door, it always sends the sound of chimes through your room, because that means that even when the door is open, you're sending wind chimes and that sweet energy to your bed. So that's one of the things that I would recommend if the bed's in a place where it's not good. Let's see. The essential oils for those who have died work for those of us who are left behind. Yes, frankincense and myrrh both are actually essential oils to help to heal non-healing wounds. I've actually used frankincense and myrrh on people who have ulcers, diabetic ulcers on their legs, and any kind of non-healing wound. Frankincense and myrrh are good for. But again, it needs to be a high quality one. Let's see. And, again, for when we have heartbreak because we've lost someone, that could be I'm really drawn to rose and jasmine. Now, am I drawn to jasmine because my dear partner who died always wore jasmine? But I drink jasmine tea all the time. But, those things that nourish our heart, which are oftentimes those things that we smell that go straight in our brain, like rose, those things also, just putting them over the heart points. In Chinese medicine, at the wrist crease here, this point right here, underneath the fifth finger, is heart 7, okay? It's called Shen Men, Shen being spirit and Men being gateway. So it's the gateway to your spirit. So if you're dealing with a lot of trauma, maybe just putting a drop of rose or a drop of frankincense right here to heal the spirit is very good. So Shen Men is a really important point. Let's see. I've got to go back up because there's so many questions. The essentials, someone asked for those lip balms. What else? Thank you so much. Would you please remind me of the brand? The brand of essential, it's called Swiss Aromatics, I believe, but also, Jeannie, if you would type in that.
I did, Alchemical Botanica.
Okay, Alchemical Botanica and Swiss Aromatics. Okay, when you let go of something, only to discover that 6 months later you get back to whatever it is you let go of, and it's a pattern. What does this pattern represent? So the first thing you're going to have to look at is what does that represent in your life. If you're going back to something, does it represent something that, is it something that's going to help you on your healing path? Or is it something you're going back because of fear of not knowing where to move forward? All of these things can be attached to a different element. And, if something is always impacting on the kidney energy, it could be something that has to do with trauma or fear in your life. If something's basically impacting on the spleen from Chinese medicine, it may be some turbidity in your life. What keeps you from having clarity about where you want to go? The last thing that I was being asked is about emotional wounds versus physical wounds. And in Chinese medicine, the emotional wounds, are always more, all from my perspective, always carries because they help to create the physical wounds. And someone's asking, can you take these essential oils internally? Yes, you can, but I would suggest that you not do that unless you have a doctor who's studied essential oils. Even some of the ones at Swiss Aromatics or Alchemical Botanica, herbs, essential oils, medicines, all have toxicities. And you have to know what's an herb that we can all take. Gansal. Almost no one has any kind of toxicity with licorice root. We may not like it, but it's not toxic to us. But then we can have an herb like mawang, which is a Phaedra, and basically that can create a lot of difficulties for many people. And it was nice talking with all of you, and I hope you all have a wonderful and good week. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.